Hey, John Lavenia here, and this is a recording of our Mastermind session for Tuesday, the 18th of August. We had a failure with our live stream, and so fortunately I captured everything here to the recording because this is not to be missed. We had our guest co-host, Ego Obi, talking about the art of receiving. So, spectacular session, and we're going to go ahead and join the recording now where Ego just started to speak.
Simply put, I would say it's to accept willingly, right? When we receive, we accept willingly. And, for those biblical scholars in the house, I'm not about to preach, but we often hear the quote from the Bible, it's more blessed to give than to receive. What does this teaching actually mean? I mean, I'm not planning to preach, but I do believe that it encourages us to give. However, I don't believe that the teaching is meant for us to give, to burden us with the pressure to give endlessly. On the contrary, and being able to receive a gift with gratitude, for me, I would say, is a sign of a healthy and humble spirit, in my opinion. So in anything we do, we have to be able to give and to receive. And I would actually go on to say that the world only gives as much as you can receive, right? So if we kind of ponder on that for a second, right? So that being the case, though, what stops us from receiving? Why is it so hard for us to receive, and what are the implications of actually receiving? The art of receiving, I think, is unfamiliar. It's an unfamiliar territory to a lot of us, myself included, until recently, where I had no choice but to receive. As a result of the pandemic, found myself home alone, husband and son, not able to come home, receiving treatment. I was stuck in the house by myself in isolation. I had to rely on neighbors I'd never spoken to, and total strangers to actually have food delivered to my front and back door, right? So I guess I had to learn the hard way. And I never really paid much attention really to receiving. And I pride myself in giving, right? So there's a book I read by a lady called Amanda Owen, The Power of Receiving. The author actually states that we need to be in a position where we create a happier, healthy life by bringing receiving and giving into balance. So it needs to be, they need to work together. We can't have more of one and less of the other. And she actually identified symptoms of a non-receiver, some of which I can actually relate to. One of them is emotionally, you feel unappreciated. Physically, you feel exhausted. Mentally, you feel resentful. And spiritually, you feel depleted. So as a result of that, some of the statements of a non-receiver, some of them I've heard myself say over the years is, people take advantage of me. I don't get what I want. I feel taken for granted. I'm always there for others, but no one is there for me. I mean, that sounds familiar, right? People don't listen to me. If I need to get something done, I'll do it myself because nobody else will do it. I can't count on anyone else. That's all real to me. It's very familiar. So I kind of, when I read that, I kind of thought, why is it that as humans, we just generally don't pay much attention to the receiving side? So, like I said at the beginning, there really should be a balance between giving and receiving. And throughout our lives, we're not really taught to receive, and we're not even educated in balancing the two. And if you think about, just in our culture and in the world today, why is it that givers are well known and celebrated in our culture, but receivers are almost unfamiliar to us? Why is that the case? I kind of pondered on that as well. And then, when we think about giving, we give of ourselves, we give of our time. The world has then elevated busyness to a virtue. So, it's almost like a thing of pride. Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so busy. Do you have any time? No, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. Like it's a virtue. And then we expend our overextended energy reserves by taking care of other people's needs at the expense of our health and our emotional well-being. And that investment in itself is really one-sided of the give-receive, or even the active receptive equation, which goes against nature, right? So, we've read, John's introduced us to a number of books, which, you guys are familiar with. But in the book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, Harv explains that to become a good receiver, we have to nurture ourselves first, right? But then we're creatures of habit, and we need to consciously practice receiving the best life has to offer. I mean, only, the power of consistency actually comes to mind. And only yesterday, Adrian Garner alluded to the fact in our conversation about imperfect and done versus perfect and not done, right? So we have to be consistent in consciously practicing receiving the best that we want for ourselves in life. So back to that book, Secret of the Millionaire Mind. Harv actually goes on to say that you bless that which you want, right? So, for example, if my desire is to have, like a multinational organization, or a big house, or a car, or stable family, then whenever I see that, I bless it. So an example, there's a house, and I desire to have a house that would house myself, my family, friends, and whoever. I bless the house and the owners of that house and the inhabitants of that house. You bless their families. So you basically bless that which you want, right? So, if it's, and you want to have a successful business, and you come across someone who has a successful business, or you hear about them, rather than harboring resentment or think, why are they achieving that and I'm not quite there? Bless them and bless the business, and you then attract that which you actually desire. So how, I then thought, how do you practice then being an excellent a receiver? And something that, came to mind, and it's very common amongst us, because we, sometimes, people don't want the attention, or it may well be some false sense of humility. I don't know. But, say somebody compliments you, for example. It's better to say simply thank you, rather than say, you look nice today. Thank you, so do you. What is it within us that makes us feel the need to return the compliment? The compliment is actually a gift, right? So even if we believe and we feel that the other, the giver looks great and they've complimented you, you don't need to, there's no need to return the compliment at the same time. So that works both ways, because it allows you as the receiver to fully receive and own the compliment, instead of, like deflecting it back to them. And then it allows the giver the joy of giving the gift without it being thrown back at them. So when we decline to receive, and this also is in the Harv Eker's book, when we decline to receive, someone else is basically waiting to take that which belongs to us, right? Because you just haven't received it, so. I would say, we know that life has to be a balance. In anything we do in life, there has to be a balance. So to move forward with our many ventures, I know that they're budding entrepreneurs in this group, they're leaders in the group. We master the art of giving, which is essential which can be through creating value, for example, for our clients and our customers. But at the same time, we need to master the art of receiving as well. So and when you think about it, we've read The Power of Consistency, we've read The Millionaire Mindset, and we talk about when attracting what we actually want. So doesn't it make sense then that if we want something, whether it's financial stability or to grow a business, we need to know how to receive it? If we don't know how to receive it, when it actually comes, we won't recognize it. So it's important that we really get into the art of receiving. And in the law of attraction, just because you know how to attract something doesn't necessarily mean you know how to receive it, right? So those who don't know how to receive are then attracted to those who don't give. So if you can receive, if you know how to receive, then I believe you get attracted to those who are givers. And, I talked earlier about, priding ourselves in being givers, and I've been one of them. But you then realize that by continually pouring out and not allowing ourselves to be poured into, we find ourselves burnt out and exhausted. And in some cases, we wear it like a badge. Oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time to do anything. But ultimately, it actually drains you to a point where the things that matter and the goals that we need to achieve, we're unable to because we're depleted in other areas. So if we want to receive, we have to know how to handle receiving. At the same time, we have to also know how to ask for, how to ask for it. I mentioned earlier the books that we've all been reading over the last few weeks. I personally have learned so much from the books and have grown from them as well. I talked about The Power of Consistency, Miracle Morning, and some of the practices in those books, like affirmation and visualization and creating lists and things like that. Think and Grow Rich. And then, of course, the book in the book study, which we've only just started, As a Man Thinketh, I think is set to be so powerful. And I'm looking forward to, to gaining more or growing more from that. So as I was thinking about, the topic of art of receiving, what came to mind for me was the butterflies and the butterfly bushes, right? The butterflies are drawn to the nectar and the fragrance of the colorful flowers, right? But at the same time, they carry sticky pollen from one bush to the other. The survival of the plants is dependent upon being able to attract the pollinators, who are the butterflies, right? So we need to develop those, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as parents, as friends, colleagues and all of that. We actually need to develop our, receiving muscles so that we attract the goals, just as the butterfly bush attracts the butterflies, right? Giving and receiving, then, by virtue of that is interdependent. So with a receiver's mindset, we're in a success mindset, a group, we're attracting our goals and inviting those goals to actually move towards us, just like the butterfly is drawn to the butterfly bush in this example. And then in this example, both the plant and the butterflies are givers and receivers. So as individuals, we have to be givers and receivers as well. When you think as a caregiver, as a colleague, as a leader, parent, friend, spouse, and so on, we then have to include ourselves in our goals to help, to heal, to love, and to create value for others. You know, when people ask me, why is it that you want to set up, you want to be an entrepreneur? I talk about creating value for others because I love to give, but I need to be able to balance the receiving part of that equation so that I'm an effective giver. I'm more beneficial to my recipients, right? Because I'm able to receive as well. There's a lot. I'm sure a lot of you know of the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, spelled TZU, and he said, and I found this really profound. He said, "The created universe carries the yin at its back and the yang in front. Through the union of the pervading principles, it reaches harmony." Right? And I'll say that again. As the created universe carries the yin at its back and the yang in front, through the union of the pervading principles, it reaches harmony. So I would say, by embracing the art of receiving, I believe we will restore balance to our lives, manifest our hopes, our dreams, our goals. That's definitely my belief. I don't know about you guys. What do you think? Done.
Well, it looks like the floor is open and there's a bunch of hands up. I'm not the host, so can you see hands on your end?
I do. Let me see.
Should be in order of them being raised. I see Cyril, Adrian, Ivier, Stuart. You see that?
Yes, yes.
Very
okay.
good.
All right. So I will unmute you, Cyril. You're first. Go for it. Cyril?
Uh-oh.
We're just getting this tech running here. Oh, here he is.
Okay, my apologies. Sorry, I thought I'd unmuted. I hadn't. I just wanted to add something because I spent a bit of work on myself because I really did have trouble with this for quite a while. And it dawned on me one Christmas when my girlfriend at the time gave me such an amazing present because it just hit the mark and I started crying. And I realized that that was a wonderful way to give. But also it dawned on, I can't remember where I got it from, but I also realized that sometimes when you give, I'll put it the other way around first. Sometimes when you give, you actually receive. And sometimes when you receive, you're.
Did we lose him? Cyril?
Sounds like Cyril's having some tech troubles today. Maybe we can come back to Cyril.
Okay, let's go to Adrian.
You're allowing them to. So, hello?
Yeah, sorry, we lost you for a second.
Oh, sorry. Okay. My internet is a bit bad today. By allowing somebody to give to you and you receive, by thanking them kindly, you're actually giving. Because I realized, I can't remember when it hit me, because the other part is also true. Sometimes when we give, we're actually receiving, because it's the act of giving that is we're taking, so to speak. Or actually, that's probably a better way for me to put it. Sometimes when we give, we're actually taking, and sometimes when we take, we're actually giving. That's what I'm trying to say. I think that puts it a little better. Anyway, it's as simple as that, really.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Cyril. Adrian?
Hi, Ego. That was a fantastic delivery. Really interesting, really thought-provoking. Thank you very much. And 100% agree with Cyril as well.
Can't hear.
Hang on, it just muted itself there. I'm not sure what happened there. Can you hear me okay? Sorry,
yes.
I was just saying for me, receiving requires a complete change of perspective, because not being able to receive really, for me, is a result of selfishness, which might sound odd. But as givers, we're thinking about ourselves. We're not thinking about the person on the other side that's doing the giving.
Right.
That's what it is for me. So I'm not as conscious as I should be about what they are trying to give me and why they're doing it and what it meant to them and the effort they might have had to put in to make that gift, give that compliment, make that telephone call, to contact me. It's all me quite often with many people. And it's a natural result. We spend so much time in our own head thinking about ourselves. Even giving, we're thinking about ourselves. How can I do it? What can I do? We've got to project ourselves, completely change perspective and say, hang on, that person made a fantastic effort, did something incredible. Thank them profusely and be able to receive that. Even if it doesn't suit you at all, it's completely the wrong gift, completely the wrong compliment. It's what it meant to them that we've got to think about. That's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And would you say some of it is cultural? In terms of
it could be. I'd go further than cultural. I'd say it probably is partly upbringing. in any culture, because again, probably the way we receive gifts when we're younger, etc., conditions us maybe, and we're there ripping off the paper as small children and just enjoying the moment, not thinking at all what fantastic effort went into all the great Christmas presents and all the great birthdays, etc. And that's how we grow up, I guess. So it's quite hard to open your mind completely and say, hang on a minute, what did the other person do to put all this together?
Right.
They gave me this event. They might have given me a surprise event or a lovely event or a lovely gift or a great compliment, which meant something to them. Right. And they probably had to put a lot of thought into. Maybe that sort of passes over our heads sometimes because we're all rushing around. We're thinking about our own problems. Right. And we just got to change perspective.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Thank you. Thanks, Adrian. Ivier? So I clicked to unmute you.
Hi, thank you so much. That was, I'm not surprised in the least that you delivered that so well. I mean, I expected nothing less, so well done. Congratulations. A lot of things you said resonate with me. And I remember that for a long time, I wasn't able to receive, and not because I didn't want to, but I think it was probably a pride issue, if I'm honest. And I'll tell you what it was. I mean, when I buy things, I invest in things. I just don't buy because they're on a special or, I can get it, at a bargain price or whatever. So when I think of, buying whatever the item is, whether it's a piece of electronic or something for the kitchen or for the home or, personal use, I wouldn't necessarily break the bank to get it. But at the same time, I will buy something that I wouldn't have to replace in, say, 6 months or 12 months. So the kind of investment I will make in that purchase decision is probably higher, I thought anyway, than what the average person would. And so from that viewpoint, I found it very hard to receive. So I especially when, in the 7 years, and I think I've shared this on previous daily calls, in the 7 years where I didn't have a home of my own, where I was virtually homeless, and for want of a better word, I mean, that's what it was. I was homeless. It taught me quite a few lessons. And I think, first was, I could accept in my car if I wanted to, but I had to receive offers from people that probably ordinarily I wouldn't have even entertained or approached. But like they say, beggars can't be choosers. And so I found in those 7 years that the quality, in my opinion, of roof I had over my head from night to night was as different as chalk and cheese. So, some nights I'll be on the couch, some nights I'll be on someone's living room floor, other nights I'll be in, the box room, which is kind of like not quite a bedroom, not quite a single room, but like if you were going to store suitcases and, boxes you haven't unpacked, that's where you'd put them. So pretty much a box room. You couldn't put a bed in there. And those 7 years taught me, something really valuable, that everybody who was giving in those 7 years to me were giving from what they had. Yeah. And so I didn't feel, I came out of that experience saying, I don't have the right going forward to judge anybody on what they're able to give me, because they're given from the little or the much they have. And for them, in some instances, that's sacrificial. So if I saw it as, you know, I mean, and some of these people didn't know me from a bar of soap. I mean, they weren't family, they weren't best mates, they weren't, you know, I hadn't known them for, you know, decent amount of time, but they still opened up their homes to me. And so I had to look at it from the perspective of what was probably going through their mind when they were thinking, let's lend Ivy a helping hand, let's reach out to her, let's share what we have. So that was one, you know, I think lesson for me in all of that. And of course, when I then went on to find my own place, you know, renting and all of that, I had to build up household items again. And what I found once again was people saying, oh, I've got 2 heaters, you can have one. Or I've got 2 blenders, you can have one. And, you know, and now once again, having gone through those 7 years, I knew not to, you know, look down on those gifts, because, you know, they were given me because they had an excess, or they felt, okay, I'm going to buy a new one anyway, so you can have my old iron. And there was absolutely nothing wrong with those items. I mean, in fact, I'm looking around my house now, and some of those items I still use 5 years later. So it wasn't as though they were giving me stuff that was meant for the bin, and therefore I was the bin receiving, you know, those items. They were quality items. But the old me would have said, oh my God, I'm having your leftovers. Or, you know, I'm a charity case, and you're giving me stuff that you'd probably throw away tomorrow, you know. And so that was an eye opener for me. And so I think, having come through that experience, I'm more receptive, and my whole ethos and mindset is more open to receiving. And then something else I do, and which is something you intimated, is when I want something, or when I need something, I find somebody who already has it. So, you know, some of my friends, you know, when they were getting married, I would either give money towards the wedding, or I would pay for her, you know, the shoes, the bride's shoes, or I would, you know, pay for, you know, part of the catering bill, something, because I knew that was what I wanted in my life. So I would find causes that aligned with my goals and my needs and my wants, and so, or invest into those purposes. And I mean, just thinking now, you know, I have friends who have homes, you know, where they're paying mortgages, or the mortgages are paid off, and I want to be in that space. So every time I go, I celebrate anybody who's signed up, you know, got a mortgage, paying off a home. You know, I go there and I buy housewarming gifts, something of value, because I want to be in that position down the line where people can celebrate with me. So it's really important. And I you know, sometimes it's a shame that we have to go through the hard knocks in life to actually get to that point where we open up ourselves to receive. So that was what rang true for me as you were speaking today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Evie. You know, something you said when you first started talking, you talked about the pride issue. And, you know, I think that kind of aligns with what Adrian said as well, when, you know, when we're receiving or we're being gifted something, we're only thinking about ourselves. And it also reminds me of a story I'd heard about a lady who got hit by Hurricane Katrina. She lost everything, and she's used to being a giver. And her biggest challenge, she said, as she was being interviewed, she said her biggest challenge was actually now receiving the basic things that she needed to survive. She struggled with that. That was harder for her than anything else. So thanks for sharing that. So Stuart, we'll go to Stuart and then Nicola.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Great job, Ego. You crushed it today. Good job. That's awesome. Great topic. Ivy, you're always a hard act to follow. You're such a
Who's talking?
Like, I get so engrossed in what you're saying. I'm like, what the hell did I want to say? So, I really enjoyed your analogy, Ego, about the butterflies being a nature guy. You know, I really appreciated that about the pollinators. So I just wanted to hit you with that. As someone who considers myself a giver, I've had issues with receiving. in my life, right? And even to the point where I feel like in the earlier days of our business, Leah and I, had blockages, to receiving abundance, based on whether it was, cultural or judgments or things that we may have had about wealth and material goods and things like that. And I think, for us, we've had to really work through a lot of things to prepare ourselves and be ready and be open for abundance, right? And you mentioned the yin and the yang, and to me, when you talk about giving and receiving, really the first thing that comes to mind is this dance of male and female energy in the giving and the receiving, right? And that it's really a mathematical equation in the way that I look at it in the universe, and kind of like what you're talking about in terms of balance, right? And if you only give, or let's just say for a moment, if the universe was only set up to give and not to receive, it would burn itself out in a blaze of glory, right? So this delicate balance of the male and the female, the giving, the receiving, the yin and the yang, things like that. I think that, at least for us, coming to the place where we felt that we were ready to receive, I think has a lot to do with self-image and feeling deserving and feeling worthy, right? And you mentioned maybe cultural reasons for that, and you dropped some scripture. And to me, immediately I thought of two things. One was the quote from the Lord's Prayer, which says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," correct? And so culturally, I think people are averse to, material goods or to receiving because it's ungodly, or, that we see that there's something wrong with that. But I want to say that if you didn't know, at least from my research, that's actually a mistranslation from the original Aramaic, which reads, "Blessed are the rich in spirit." Okay, so take that to lunch, everybody. That's an interesting thing. I also want to mention just a little personal experience, right? Because again, Leah and I have come through, a long journey from, being well below the poverty line, and sort of having to teach ourselves how to be better receivers. Some of you guys know that we also, in addition to the wilderness trips that we do with the llamas, we have a llama rescue outfit. And so we have 50 rescue llamas out in the pasture here. And we recently got picked up as a special project by our local nonprofit community foundation, and they let us do fundraising and receive donations through their 501c3 nonprofit charter. And, we started receiving, sizable donations from clients. And really, it took a lot to really feel worthy and be open to receiving that. And then one particular instance that I'll share with you that just kind of blew us away. I do snowshoe trips in the wintertime as well. And so we lived in a place that had feet and feet of snow. I have a dear friend and a repeat guest that has come on many, many trips with his family over the years. And he has a condo in Taos, and he came to visit. And he always tries to come by the ranch and see what he can do to help out. And so there was probably about 4 feet on the ground, and I had to feed the llamas. And I said, "Yeah, you can come over and help me feed the llamas." And so I had, this 6-foot long kid's sled with a big rope, and, I'm pulling bales of hay and chucking them over the fence for the llama. And this guy, helped me do all this. And then New Year's Eve, a couple of years ago, I was out on a trip with people. And then I came home, and there was a brand new tractor in our driveway. And it brought me to tears. It was just amazing, right? So to be able to create the pathway for receiving and abundance in our lives, I think is what we're all trying to do. And I'm excited to just be on that journey with all you guys. Thank you.
That's awesome, Stuart. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. Nicola, and then Koila next. Birthday girl, go for it.
Hello. Brilliant choice of subject today, by the way, and very well delivered. So now I've got to follow Adrian, Javier, and then Stuart. I'm not quite sure how to do that, right? But there seems to be a bit of a common theme. I've noticed that listening to the three of you speak is it sounds like everyone's been on a bit of a journey themselves, and it started with an inward one where we would only consider ourselves in the given, or receiving, sorry, and then moving to an outward one. And once we realize and start thinking of the other person, we change our perception of it. And my example is quite similar. Mine was around compliments, and I realized a few years ago I was terrible at receiving compliments because I just didn't believe it. So it was through reading a book, I think it might have been How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm sure it was an extract I read from that. And it made me realize that, like you've each said, I wasn't considering the other person in that exchange of giving and receiving at all. And I was only thinking of myself. And by me not accepting that compliment, I'm basically throwing it back in their face. Right. And when you think about what it takes for somebody to build up the courage to give that compliment, and I'm literally just throwing it back at them, it really changed my kind of perception of what was happening. And I think the way I thought about it to myself was, well, what if it was something physical that they were giving to you? It just words, just because it's a compliment. What if they're actually giving you something and you've just literally thrown it back at them? Yeah. And it just changed my whole outlook on the exchange of giving and receiving. So from that point onwards, I saw it in a completely different light, and it almost becomes a bit of a skill that you've got to kind of hone over time. But I've found that when you do, people are far more receptive to giving you more. So people enjoy giving if you're grateful for that gift, and if you're thankful and you get excited for it. So I find that people now generally want to give me more because I'm more appreciative of it. Right. So it's quite similar to all three of your stories, I think. But just that change in focusing outward rather than inward at me was just quite a big shift. So
yeah, that's quite profound. Thank you. Thanks, Nicola. Koila?
Hi.
We can hear you.
Yes, yeah. I've just seen you've unmuted me. Yeah, I've really enjoyed that and all the contributions so far. I missed the first bit because I had a phone call to deal with, but I'll catch up on YouTube later. So my thing that I want to contribute is slightly different probably, but I definitely agree with Nicola's thing about compliments. That's been one of my things. And I also I've always been good at giving things and helping people, and am just not at all good at taking, at receiving things and receiving help. And I had to get to the point where I was really kind of desperate before I could do that. And the story, a couple of stories to tell you. As you know, I looked after my husband who had dementia and was quite ill, and that was quite hard. And I'd kind of got myself into a way with doing that and got my head around it and come to a kind of a balance with it. And then I had a phone call from my father who said he was going into a home. So I kind of thought, okay, well, yeah, that's that, because it had been either he was going to come up here with us, or he was going to go into a home. And he I think he'd had some friends who had got fed up with helping to look after him, basically, because he was a long way away from me. And they kind of almost pushed him into this home. And the very next day, after I'd got this, no, he's not coming here then. The very next day, he phoned back and said, is that still offer still open, and can I come and live with you? And yes, but it was really very hard, because then I'd got, I was having to deal with looking after two people with lots of issues and trying to get my father up to me when I couldn't go down and get him, and etc. So it was really quite hard. And that evening, I had a kind of little breakdown to myself, and after I got my husband Peter into bed, I went and I walked along the shore down, which is just down the road from me. Down the lane. I took a walk along the shore in the dark and the moon, and I was looking at the water, and I was thinking, do you know, that looks really attractive. Now, I wasn't going to go and throw myself in it because I'm not that kind of person, but you just got that just looks like you could just go and that would just be that finished. But no, you're not doing that. So as I was walking along, I just said, you know, I really, really need help. I really need help. I really, really need help. And I was just talking to the moon, the universe, whatever. The next day, I was listening along to the radio with Peter, and whilst I was working, he had radio all the time. It was better for his dementia. It was music mostly. But with that radio program came a little section of somebody being interviewed, and they were being interviewed about mindfulness. And this kind of leapt out at me, and I thought, what's that? And I took that idea and I researched it. And from that, I ended up with going to, with starting meditation, and came across John Kabat-Zinn. From then I went to Thich Nhat Hanh, and it started off a whole spiritual journey, basically, which helped me cope with everything I had to cope with, and also helped me to accept help from other people to deal with all the things I was having to deal with. So moving along to more recently, my husband and my father are now dead, and I've been through a fair few issues, as you'll have heard of it, as we were going along. And just before Christmas, my job's really not good, and I was struggling, and I was feeling that I had like no purpose at all, and I knew there was something wrong with my life. I'd got to do something with it, and I didn't know what. And I'd got all of these signals in my life that were saying, this is really not good, you have to do something. So I was kind of like, well, what do I do? You know, I need some help here. What am I gonna do? And you know, up propped Sophie the next day. And from Sophie and the Blue Sky thing, which I joined, I got this. And this is more important to me than the whole Blue Sky thing, really. I'm still doing I'm doing the Blue Sky thing. I'm gonna get through that. But the value for me is in this, basically. So yeah, that's a kind of a different kind of receiving, but it was very valid in my life.
That's an awesome insight, and I'm sure you're not actually alone in the value that you're getting from this community. I would actually echo that myself. Thank you, Kola. So we'll move on to Wayne, Mark, and then Ingrid. Just so we can get to everyone, could we please just kind of ensure we kind of keep it contained, so that there's so many hands up, and I know that John has a hard stop at 10 minutes past the hour. So if we go to Wayne first, and then we go to Mark, Norcal, and
just talk faster, everybody. Talk fast. Talk like John. Spit it out.
Okay.
Great. Okay, talking fast. Here we go. You knocked it out of the park, Ego. That's fantastic. Or to use a good Canadian sports analogy, you scored a hat trick today. So Newton's third law says that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Mm-hmm. So if we expect to be a giver but not a receiver, we're asking somebody to receive, but we're not willing to do that ourselves. So we need to be able to receive if we are going to be a good giver. And those books you were talking about, there's a lot in there about receiving, about recognizing opportunity, and so on. So the more we receive, the more we can afford to give. Right. So, and then the other piece that I want to say, and you mentioned that, I saw Stuart just threw it in the chat there. You mentioned the scripture, that it's better to give than to receive. But I think we have to be careful about taking parts of scripture in isolation. It also says, ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be open to you. So in what you were saying today in receiving, how do we get better at receiving? I'm going to propose that we get
Oh no. Wayne?
Yeah, tech day.
Copy. Okay. Should we move to Mark, and then we'll come back to Wayne?
Wayne's out in the woods. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see what happens. And I accidentally lowered Habiba's hand. I can't wait to hear Habiba.
Mark, do you want to go ahead, and we'll come back to Wayne? Hopefully, you can.
Sure. Thanks, Ego. Hey, thanks for taking the lead on this, Ego. Great commentary, and this is such a powerful subject for us right now in our journey. Just to echo the whole yin yang thing, I won't belabor on that, but I see it in sort of a different, or maybe a different way to say it. Guys like us, we're more layman terms sort of people. So, kind of what goes around comes around. That kind of thing. And I think we each have a responsibility to that. It can be good and it can be bad. You can provide, you can also receive, but you can give great things and they can be received in that regard, and you can receive good things, but there's also a negative component to that, and I think we need to be a little bit cautious about what it is that we're what's moving around, and I think that's the whole point of that of that comment. What goes around comes around. It can be good or bad. I think we all follow in our whole life. We are receivers, and maybe we don't pay as much attention. Maybe that's the real issue here: is how to have a better understanding or responsibility to the reception of things. I mean, you're a follower before you're a leader. Even in life, in family, career, sports, cultural aspects, we all are in a position where we're receiving instruction, receiving information, receiving on how to learn, how to act, how to interact with others, what to say, et cetera, and then we get to a point in that process where maybe there becomes enough wisdom and experience in the journey that now we become the ones who are starting to give. So I'm just trying to provide maybe a little bit different perspective on this, but I do understand the whole idea of receiving. And I'm a violator, like probably most of us. I've already always wanted to turn that around because I feel a little bit uncomfortable about taking positive thoughts from people. But I'll give it to John. This 4 or 5 months that I've been in this program with him, just to echo what Koila was saying, it has completely adjusted my brain housing group and how I am approaching things and how I am receiving information now and how I'm learning. It's it's hard to move 20, 30, 40 years of constant repetitive learning and skill, and you kind of get into that mold and that's who you become. How does that get turned around? Well, I tell you how that gets turned around. You participate in this forum, and that's how you get to the other end of the spectrum. And I just think today's all these sessions, this one that you're doing here today too, Ego. I'm always, this is my addiction now. I have to have this conduit every day. It must be a part of my life. So,
awesome.
And I'm giving to everybody here, and please, I'll take what you can give back to me too. Thank you very much.
As we move on to Ingrid, just something you said that struck me. You mentioned that we're all receivers, and we are, because we're constantly receiving information and advice and all sorts of things. But I think maybe what we need to switch on is being intentional as receivers. Moving on to Ingrid. Ingrid. Ingrid?
Am I here? Did
Yes.
I do it?
Yes.
Okay. So 3 quick things. 1, you are an awesome presenter. Fantastic.
Thank
the
you.
timing, the phrasing. I could listen to you read the frickin' phone book. It's unbelievable. And even past listening to you, I did manage to actually get what you were saying, but I was just, you're such a great presenter. I hope that you do this in your life like a lot. You probably do. Like you're probably like some public speaker and I don't even realize it. But it's fantastic. I really appreciate your way with words and your timing, your voice, the inflections. It's just great.
Oh,
so thank you.
Thank you.
Second is I remember really clearly when I was about 14 or 15 and we were all hot shit little musicians, and we actually had a coach come in and teach us how to take compliments, because you play and maybe it sucked and it sucked, but the other person didn't know it sucked. And it really doesn't help them for you to go, really? When they say, I really liked blah, blah, blah. So they actually taught us, you can't do that. You cannot think you're above someone else's compliment because you know the real truth, because maybe you sucked, or in your mind you sucked. You're taking away their experience. No one's going to love you more because you were just giving them blowback basically on what they've come to tell you. You've done a great job, or we really enjoyed it. So that was a good lesson to learn early on. And then I always have this kind of question about receiving. When little kids give you things like a flower or whatever, piece of soap, a really bad drawing of the dog, whatever, at what age do we subconsciously stop being really thrilled with what they've given us? Like if they're 2 and they give us a pebble, we're thrilled. We think it's amazing. If they're 12 and they give us a pebble, do we then go, why? When do we stop taking the intention of the gift? Is there like an age limit that subconsciously we do that? That's just a thought I have. So that's it.
That's an interesting question. I have some thoughts on that, but I want to give others a chance to speak. And if we have time, I'll just kind of give my thoughts on that.
Great.
Well, thanks a lot, Ingrid. We'll move on to Elma now, and then Simone.
Thank you, everyone. Ego, great topic. And yes, you are an awesome presenter. I mean, I'm following a lot of great people, so bear with me. So when you brought it up, the whole act of giving and receiving, it definitely is a balance. And, there are 2 people involved, like what Stuart was saying, it sort of takes 2 to tango. And, pretty much at the heart of this act is the heart of care, concern, and generosity. And that's, I think, what we sort of miss when we, fail to receive as a receiver. And I also find that sometimes as a receiver, there are many reasons, but I think sometimes if we receive something, it's an admission of lack, like whether it's an admission of lack of confidence or lack of humility because we're too prideful about something. I think if we are able to shift the focus on the act itself, that it does involve 2 people, that just realize that somebody's actually caring about you or being concerned about you, celebrate the generosity that they're offering to you. And, if you don't receive, you're denying that person the joy of giving, because we all have joy in giving. So if you don't receive it, they're not receiving their joy. So I'll keep it nice and succinct.
I like that. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
Ingrid's point, I don't think there's ever a time you should, to that point, I don't think there's a time that you stop showing gratitude and receiving. Because to that point, like, they're showing care and concern. And if anyone's showing care and concern, that's what the focus should be on.
Yeah, thank you, Elma. I love your point about celebrating the generosity. And then to Ingrid's point, if a 12-year-old were to give me a pebble, I would want to understand why. So it might be that they've picked a pebble which in their eye is beautiful, and they hand it to me. And if I ask them why, what if they say, it looks just as beautiful as you? Right? Could be that. So I don't know. I mean, no 12-year-old has ever given me a pebble. So, all right. Thanks, Elma and Husang. Okay, we'll go to Simone or Simon? Simone.
It's Simone.
Simone. Okay.
Oh, God. Let me hope I don't mess this up. This is like my first time. I come from a social work background, so I work on the mantra of, like, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth to listen twice as much as you speak. So that's why, but I'm going to do my best. That was awesome. As soon as you started talking, it hit me, like, instantly. I don't do well accepting anything from anybody. I'm just super independent. However, like, it's been a process. I've learned that you have to accept help because no one can do it alone. It's like a cup. At some point, You know, you got to keep it filled, or a plant, you got to water it, and everything needs something. And I realized that when my son was born at 24 weeks, and, you know, I needed the hospital and the doctors and the staff and everybody to keep him alive and to keep him going. And I became somebody that wasn't just a giver, but now I became somebody that was needed. He needs me all the time. And if I mess up, then he gets sick or something bad happens. And so I think the struggle became not so much knowing that I need, but I think expressing and asking for the help, I think, becomes a difficult part, because then that's showing my vulnerability. That's me finally realizing that I actually can't do everything myself, even though I feel like 90% of the time I am. But I think there's some strength in that, and allowing other people to help, because everybody around me sees it. So they're always like, you need this and you need to do that. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So when I finally accept it, they're like super happy. And it's like a, you know, parade, like, yay, she let me watch her son, or yay, she let me cook dinner. And so I think that's the tough part, admitting it. And I think sometimes we just have to be humble and just realize that everybody needs somebody.
Yeah, that's so profound. Thank you so much, Simone. Thank you. So we have just one hand up, and that's Habiba. Sorry, I can't say your name as John says it. Habiba.
You said it beautifully. Thank you. Ego, this has just been so wonderful today, and I'm really appreciating everyone's input, because it's highlighting different things. Obviously, you know, the culture of being a giver and doing so with humility, and, you know, giving before you receive. And I was raised with all of that. But I also watched my mother as she would open the door to, you know, the people who would come and knock to spread their faith. And even though she was very secure in her own faith, she would invite them in for tea and conversation. And so there were these places in my life that balance was evident to me. But, you know, we are often, you know, products of our culture, right? So I became a giver in a really big way. And there's a couple of things, in fact, something that Simone just said about being needed. It's like, you know, that sense of being needed, you know, there's a sense of significance in that. And so that I've just always, that place of balance has not always been real clear. But one of the places that it was most evident for me that I wanted to bring to the table is in the early 90s. I went to El Salvador to, it was right after the peace accords had been signed, and we were helping a community to rebuild because many of the men had been killed. And so it was a lot of women and children, and not so many men. And so we went in to help them rebuild this community. And of course we went in the spirit of giving, right? And I came away from that feeling that I received far more than I ever could have given. These people had next to nothing, and yet they were giving us everything. They were killing chickens that they wouldn't kill for themselves in order to feed us, those kinds of things. So it was just such a, you know, it was, we wouldn't have done anything other than receive with absolute, you know, gracious gratitude. And so that's the essence of what kind of highlighted for me today is underlying all of what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling is this place of gratitude, that when I'm giving, when I think of moments that I have given the most, underlying that is a state of gratitude. And when I'm receiving, the more I'm in a true state of gratitude, the more gracious I can be in the receiving process. And so it's it's probably another whole topic for us to bounce into someday. But that for me is like, as long as I'm keeping myself in an energy of gratitude, I feel like that moves me to navigate that balance between the giving and receiving. So that's the piece.
So profound. Thank you so much, Habiba. It kind of reminds me of something somebody said. A lady, a friend, a founder of some organization that I'm part of, she said, the act of gratitude is an act of generosity. Mm-hmm. And I think that also ties with what Elma was saying earlier. So thanks for that insight, Habiba. Should we try Wayne one last? Oh, is Wayne still here? No, I don't.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry. I'll try again. I don't know where it stopped there, but I just, yeah, that scripture that said, ask and you shall receive. And I just thought that perhaps one way that we can practice getting better at receiving is to become askers. And I'm not saying that in a way that we just ask for everything in our life, but, you know, just asking for a glass of water or asking for somebody to help or different things like that. And allowing others to give as we would. So somebody asked me, can I have something? I would more than gratefully provide it. But lots of times I'm afraid to ask for something, or I'm not willing to ask for something, or I'm too proud to ask for something. So that was just a thought that I had on that. So, you know, if we're going to get better at receiving, maybe we need to be better at asking as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And with that, I'll hand it back to John.
Hey, you know what? I got at least 3 reminders or cognitions out of what you introduced here today. I go, and I think the simplest one is something where you were quoting Lao Tzu or Lao Tse, or the 10 million different ways that you can pronounce the guy's name who lived, 3,000 years ago. And the I guess the modern metaphor for that would be frequency, right? So high frequency, lots of movement, lots of receiving, lots of stuff. And I've seen that in my own life so many times, where I'm down in the dumps, or I'm angry or whatever, and I'm repulsive to receiving. I repel, right? But when I'm higher emotional state, I attract things to me. This could be the key to luck, whatever that is, right? Luck. Happy people tend to attract, right? So how valuable is this? I got to acknowledge everyone who shared here today, because yeah, while this is not something we can tangibly say, look, I got this product here today, I got this benefit, look at the benefit. My goodness, the subjective value of just being consistently in this conversation is priceless to me. So thank you, Ego, for being a part of the solution here, not just for me in my own life, but everyone who's going to see this. If you are seeing this on recording, it's because we posted the recording because the YouTube stream failed. So fortunately, I was fast on the button and we got it right as Ego was getting started. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow for another thrilling session. We're going to have Glenn Henderson out here, so get ready for that. And of course, tonight we've got Adventures in Mindset with Stuart Wild. So tune in. That's obviously a members-only broadcast, JL Success Mastermind, and you can get full access to the entire calendar of thrilling events. I think that's all we got for tonight. Is that right, Stuart? Adventures in Mindset. I think that is it. I should know, but we're just getting this going. We're in our first week with all this. That's it. Yep. We'll see everybody back here tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern U.S. time with Stuart. In the meantime, have a great day. You absolutely deserve it.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.